Hello and welcome to the Broadcast Tech Talks podcast, a TV industry podcast from the Broadcast Tech team. My name's Jake Bickerton and I'm the editor of Broadcast Sport and Broadcast Tech magazines. In this episode of the Broadcast Tech Talks podcast, Broadcast Tech reporter Max Miller talks to Timeline TV's CEO Dan McDonnell and Head of Operations Dave Harnett about the company's recent expansion in Ealing.
So we're here today because Timeline TV have installed a new very large expansion to their base in Ealing. So maybe first of all, Dan, you can give us a brief overview of kind of what's been put in and how the building's been going.
Yeah, absolutely. So in about May last year, we started our expansion move. We've been based in Ealing Studios for many years, and we had been looking to expand. Primarily to be able to introduce studios to our operation at Ealing. Ealing Studios were only galleries, and we wanted to build studios. So that led to our expansion in the building you're in here, in 22 Uxbridge Road. We're over 6 floors, and we've now got 3 studios in operation, multiple galleries, connectivity, and we are fairly close to finishing.
Okay, cool. And I guess, Dave, how has it been setting up in a new area and kind of going from scratch almost?
Yeah, it's been pretty full on. It was a really exciting expansion. So that it all started because we knew we wanted to expand into studio shows, and then we got asked to do the Summer Paralympics for Channel 4 with Whisper as the production company, and essentially we had to build it out very, very quickly, and that was all the technical facilities as well as the actual physically building the place, and then get all the teams moved across, and then it's all the small things like making sure your health and safety and things like that's ready as well, and we had to deliver all of that in a really short space of time. And it's been really exciting to see the place pop up, and the customers absolutely love it because they can have a whole floor, they can have a completely dedicated area. We've got digital signage on all the doors that changes depending on which production's in, and we can and we've got like nice glass fronted buildings in a really nice Ealing location where there's fantastic bars and restaurants and everything around as well. So sort of moving all that stuff over was a challenge, and it's been really exciting to see it all come together.
And you still have some offices and stuff at Ealing Studios as well?
Yeah, we've still got the operation at Ealing Studios. And that still continues to do shows now, and we've got a long-standing client in Racing TV there that we run a managed service contract for as well. So the 2 sites are very much going. But as Dan said, the not being able to have that studio floor was really hindering us during COVID. And now that we've got 3 very large studios here, and we're able to accommodate completely different types of show, and what it can also do is enrich our remote production shows where they want to add like a studio layer to that.
I guess it definitely means you can kind of move beyond just live events and go into more studio shows and kind of a whole new genres, I guess.
And we have done that. We've picked up corporate work for big large corporate companies that want to do CEO sort of briefings but make it look spectacular. We've done work for non-sport broadcasters to do green screen filming as well. So we can do the whole scale of it, and what's really powerful is the live element. And also to say we've got, on one of the floors of the building, we've built a very large data centre which underpins all of these operations, and that's another area where we needed more space to expand into. So now we've got a very big space that we can, every time somebody wants a new piece of equipment or a new idea, we can roll it out without having to worry about where we're going to house it.
Regardless of your show, regardless of where you're doing your show, you can feel like you're in one place with latency as an absolute minimum. There are other shows that we do that are on the other side of the world, and some of things like the LGP, we're permanent. We've got connectivity to all of those locations, so you can get to Sydney in half a second round trip, which is absolutely staggering every time I see it. And but then we do other shows where there isn't as much connectivity, so we go on the internet and we sort of tailor those remote and connectivity solutions around the show, around the spec and repeatability and affordability. But the bottom line is everything is coming back on an ultimately connected network, and all the facilities are built with remote in mind, so that you can have centralized remote production, you can have decentralized remote production. Dan's got a really good example of the Cell GP, where we have the Spanish commentators. You want to fill in on that? But
yeah, no, the Cell GP is a fantastic example of remote production. There's been many articles about it, and that's been is now hosted out of this building. And on Dave's example, we do the world feed in one gallery, and then we do another language feed in another gallery, but where their commentators are actually in their own country. So that's coming in. The boats are in another country. So there's kind of several elements all playing into the remote production, but that enables you to drive down cost and get a very high production value product. So all of these things come into play. So when people talk about remote production, there is many different aspects to it now.
And do you think, I'm guessing, having gone this far, you think that's kind of the future going forward for kind of live events and that?
I think the future will always be an element of, we need to look at the programme and decide how much of it will be on site, how much of it does it make sense to bring back to a remote location, which model works best, and even if a programme only has a remote commentator that's not had to travel somewhere, that could be a good remote production, all the way through to Sale GP, where we have hardly anybody on site from a production point of view, and all of the production is done remotely. So I think that is definitely now, it's happening now, and the future, I think, will be look at a program and a lot of it will be remote.
And that obviously has big bonuses for cost savings, but also sustainability and not flying out huge teams.
Yeah, the sustainability is one of the key deciders about it, because even if it's cost neutral and you're saving hundreds of tons of CO2 and reducing flights and reducing hotels and just reducing people travelling to airports, or even just within the UK, if you think about moving 20 or 30 people 200 miles and all of the extra burden that brings on the environment. So, and the environment is very much in the news, and every year it will get more and more important.
Is that something when people come to you now, they're looking for that when they're kind of you do the production? Yeah,
absolutely. When we do these pitch processes and bid processes now, we've found that the weighting, they usually do these bigger ones with sort of weighted scores and things like that, and the weighting for sustainability measures is significantly higher than it used to be, and sometimes it's the highest. And we've got sustainability built into us at our core. We've got a lot of really passionate people in Timeline who really care about bringing the broadcast industry down to use its absolute minimum carbon emissions. And having this remote production offering allows us to really scale that to as far as the customer wants to go. I mean, that's the whole point about decentralized remote production, is it doesn't make any sense to fly those Spanish commentators to a remote production hub in the UK to go and work on an event that's in Marseille. Whereas, a lot of people say, we're doing remote production, and actually they're flying people into that central hub. And if you can do decentralized remote production or combine that with central offerings, it's really about tailoring it to get every ton of CO2 down.
Yeah, and it's something which, like you're saying, is in the news a lot at the moment. Is there, in addition to remote production, in terms of the design, the way the place was built, what else was done kind of sustainability-wise?
One of the big things in the studio that we're driving towards is virtual reality sets. The traditional way of doing studios is a lot of big trucks, a lot of sets, a lot of moving things in and building it and making a really impressive set. And we've designed our studio so that we can replicate that, but in the virtual reality world. Now the technology is fantastic, but not particularly new. What is new for us is that we have got it all set up, so it's all there, it's ready, it's calibrated, and we've got some default sets that we've designed that are really high end, and the client can very quickly give us their logos or their colours, and we can adjust it, and you can have a very, very high end virtual reality set very quickly. Or we can, you can give a bespoke design, and we can, design it from scratch to get it exactly how you like it. But once it's done, we can turn that set on, and there has been no 40-foot trucks moving sets and storing sets and making things out of metal and wood. So going forward, once you've got your virtual reality set, then there is a lot of savings, that environmental savings that can be done as well, but also just practical savings and keeping the cost down. If you can have a very high-end looking set, it allows, as I was saying, corporate clients to get a very slick production, as well as full-on broadcast clients.
And those virtual reality sets have other bonuses as well. You can kind of test, I guess, a bit more easily. You don't have to build something from scratch. And we
can get our utilisation up. We can turn a studio around a lot quicker than you can with traditional sets. Now we still do host traditional sets, and our studios can take both. And sometimes a virtual set may not work for a production, so we can do both. But the virtual set really does drive speed, efficiency, and environmental impact.
And I guess more widely, all this kind of expansion, new studios, new sets, and so on, has come at a time when there's a boom in kind of TV production, both in sporting events after COVID, kind of catching up. Do you think this is something where that's going to continue? Obviously, you're expanding at this time, or is it something which may continue but not at quite the same speed once that kind of post-COVID catch-up is completed?
I think there's always a high demand for sport and other TV programs and entertainment. So I don't know. We're obviously severely limited by COVID, so it's great that we are getting back to full strength. I don't see that downturning. I think where people are looking for cost-effective ways to make more programming, and that's what we're delivering here.
I think the reality is that what COVID did bring around was the remote production revolution, because we were banging that drum for a very long time before, and we had some customers that were willing to work with us, and we could deliver some really innovative solutions. But there was always that niggling in the back of the mind that maybe it should be done as an OB, that maybe we should. And what COVID proved is that you absolutely don't have to do that. Obviously, there are use cases where it makes sense to do that, but what that really did show is that remote production works. It can consistently work. And, some production teams don't want to go driving up and down the M6 all week long. You can get your best directors, your best producers working on many, many more productions if they're centralized. And you can, Dan always has a really good example about Piero. You can use things like Piero and other analysis tools that you would only really put on your top flight sports. And now, because you only need to use them for the one day, you can apply those resources to 3 other productions in a week, which is, the utilization for productions is much, much higher. And I think that is kind of the revolution we've seen. There's a lot of interesting work around remote productions in the cloud and AI and all those things, which we've got our R&D teams working on all the time, and they are very exciting. But there's still so much further to go with remote production, and it's just getting more and more exciting every week.
The remote production opens up a lot, I guess, in terms of kind of flexible working, and it makes it easier for people with families, with all sorts of different situations, to kind of work in the industry. Is that something you found? 'Cause, obviously you've been recruiting as part of this. Have you been able to more widely?
One of the exciting things about remote production on things like SailGP and other events that could be worldwide is there only a certain amount of people that can give up that time to fly around the world and interact on those programs. And now bringing in a SailGP or a big event into a centralized location allows a production to have a much wider range of people who can work on it, and B, allows the teams to get a much more varied experience. You can do a much wider array of programs than the particular part that suited your lifestyle. So although some people miss out on the travel, which they don't like, I'd say now a larger proportion of people enjoy working on more varied programs.
All I was going to add to that is that another key example with the Paralympics in mind is there, you've got people with disabilities and wheelchair users and things like that are now able to work on shows that where travel and would have to have quite they'd have to do special measures to get them there to work on those events, and sometimes they're more tricky to get around while you're there. Whereas here, we've got every room's wheelchair accessible, every room's able to have any measures that they need, and we had a fantastically diverse team working from Whisper on the Paralympics, both Summer Paralympics and Winter Paralympics, and that I think is just another fantastic knock-on effect of centralised remote production.
Well, yeah, I was going to exactly my next question, to be honest. So,
there you go.
Helps a lot with diversity, and obviously with Whisper and the Paralympics, they had a huge amount of diversity across their team. So
and you've got a group of people that know more about the sport than anybody else, and so you've got the right people working on the right sports, and it's really good to see.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess in addition to those kind of the facilities here and centralised, you've also brought in some new OB trucks. Are they similar to what you had before, or new capabilities and so on?
Well, broadly similar into what we had before, but we've expanded our fleet quite considerably with our new production trucks. So we now have a very large fleet of 4K OB trucks. And it does complement the remote production. We have talked about remote production wanting to take people off site, but there are still programs that need these large trucks for whatever reason, for the workflow that's demanded. And we're now in a position where we can offer very high end 4K trucks and all the way through to small trucks. So our fleet has grown considerably over the last 6 months.
Is that something where you think different sports or different events are better with a bigger on-site presence, or is it a bit more difficult?
It's not really sport-led as such. It's more to do with venues, connectivity, who needs to be on site because of the production requirements, and that's what I'm saying. I don't think the future is okay. This has to be remote production. It will be what works best for the production, what works best for the environmental, the cost. All these different factors, and then a solution is applied, and that could be large trucks, small trucks, remote production, fibre connectivity, satellite. So it's just another it's just another kind of decision factor on the program. But we are now fully geared up to literally talk to the production and offer any model from full on site to full remote production. And anything in between, really.
Okay, and that's something. Recently I think most people have heard in the industry about the kind of infamous collapse of Arena TV. And is that something where you've seen, okay, a very large competitor is gone, and so we can come into this space, or is it something you thought it was going to be growing anyway, and you were going to go for it?
I mean, the Arena collapse and sale of various assets has obviously helped us grow at a very quick speed. We were already on that journey, but we've picked up a lot of equipment and a lot of resources and a lot of staff that wouldn't have been available. So we were on that journey anyway, and it was just a circumstance that's enabled us to expand probably at a quicker rate of knots than you would traditionally have done if you had to construct OB trucks from scratch.
Yeah, we essentially doubled the size of the fleet as a result of it. I don't think that anyone would say that we were happy to see the demise of Arena, though. That another British OB company that was an independent is a nice thing, and we would always support that being in the industry, which is why we were really keen to try and make sure that as many of the staff were looked after, and we could try and keep some of those memories going with us. But yeah, it was a once in a career circumstance, I'd say. Well, certainly something I hope not to see again.
No, and it did seem, I guess, well, from what you were saying, and across the whole industry, people were very keen to help out those affected and kind of recruit them at other businesses and so on. Was that something you specifically kind of in the aftermath were like, okay, we want to help out?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, day one, we were just calling around making sure everyone was okay, really, more than anything. It was there was nothing, not trying to poach people or be opportunistic or anything like that. These are kind of friends, colleagues, almost family. It's a fairly small industry, so you had to make sure they were all looked after.
There's been some talk of kind of a skills shortage in some areas, and how have you found recruiting and trying to grow in that kind of environment of?
Yeah, I mean, recruiting is always a challenge, and for the last about 4 to 5 years, we've run our own internal training scheme. I can't remember the exact figures, but we've taken on about 33 graduates over the last 4 years, and most of those still work for Timeline, and the rest have gone on into the industry, and that's something that we're keeping going. The next wave is about to start very soon, so the recruitment drive has begun for that, and that's a really important part. And we wouldn't have enough people within the industry if this wasn't happening across all the different sort of members of the industry. But for Timeline, it's a really key part, because it's very, very hard to find talent.
Yeah, the skills shortage is a tough time at the moment, and as Dan says, we are just going to have to rely on a lot of homegrown talent, and then obviously trying to attract some of those senior roles as much as we can.
And you think that's the key, is to kind of for companies to have their own kind of homegrown, bringing people through straight from graduates.
Not just graduates. Graduates is one program we have. We want to open up applications from all areas of the population to get diversity and to get a really good talent pool. So yeah, we have a graduate scheme. We also have other schemes, looking at apprentices and various other options. But yeah, getting new people in is a key strategy on our diversity and inclusion policies, because we need those people to come through from the entry schemes all the way through, in several years into senior management, to really be able to drive that.
And that's an important part of it as well, kind of making sure they have room to grow. They're not just coming into a set role and then...
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, Timeline, I would say, from a very personal level, is a fantastic place to thrive. I joined as a sound guarantee in the outside broadcast department in, I don't know when, several years ago, and I've personally been able to come all the way through up to head of operations, very senior role, and the space to grow within this company is something that you don't see in a lot of places. The term dead person's shoes is kind of thrown around a lot. You've got to wait for someone else to leave. Whereas here, because of the expansion, because of the way we work, there is a lot of opportunities to thrive. And we've seen that with our graduate program, and we've seen a lot more of a diverse group getting into more senior roles, and we're just trying to continue that further and further.
Okay, and now you've got all the people on board. You've got the new base. You've kind of got the new OB trucks. What's the kind of the next steps, I guess, for Timeline?
Well, the people is a continuing. We're always recruiting and looking for new people, and it's now consolidating on all of that. It's finding the productions that are a good fit to our facilities, and keeping looking at new technology and keeping ahead of the curve. That's what we have to do, and that's what we thrive on doing, looking at new ideas, developing them, and then rolling them out, which is kind of what remote production was and is now mainstream.
Yeah, we've always liked to think of ourselves as very much innovators and on the edge of technology, and so we put a lot of effort into our R&D processes and seeing what's going on, and making the best we can with the technology that's available.
And outside of remote production, what do you think will be the next kind of big jump for the industry?
5G is something that obviously has been bandied around a lot, because it could be really exciting if we are able to get to that point where we can book secured bandwidth and be able to deliver guaranteed bandwidths at various places where currently you have to contend with all the public. And so that will be really exciting, because then that will open up a big wide range of opportunities to places that you currently have to get fibre connectivity into.
And I think what that shows is the remote production is a kind of a tag word that can have a huge. You could add in AI robotic cameras following football match without people being there. You can add in remote control cameras being done from the other side of the world, like we're doing with SailGP. So the remote production banner has got a long way to grow with new technology that will be feeding into that. So I think there's, we are only at the very beginning of that curve.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and rate us. I'll see you next time for the next episode of the Broadcast Tech Talk series.